Idir saon ní déag fiche agus meiche fiche héin, le linn coganna síirse, croch rialtas na Breataine Deichniúr óblach I bríosún mhain seo. Corbaí gré na caracroch iad, áite annach siad ceithre scór bliain dúiltithe ag rialtaí éagsúla an stáit. Ní gan treid a hennig lá úscailte. I mí ar a fóver blian an 2001 dahan an stát an Deichniúr Dearmadta a jeú. Óglaí a fuair bás ar son na poblachta. Kevin Barry, Thomas Whelan, Patrick Morton, Patrick Doyle, Bernard Ryan, Thomas Bryan, Frank Flood, Thomas Traynor, Edmund Foley, agus Patrick Maher. Téin scéal an Deichniúra agus an fachtas a thug sláán ón bríosún iad siar ceithre scór bliain. Bunaíoch dáléireann I mí anor 1990. Dír siad ar thíre an dón mhór dáléireann a aithins mar rialtas tleathach na hÉireann. Idir 1990 agus mí júl 1921, fearú coganna síirse idir an taire agus fórsaí imperiúlachta na Breataine. Chuir rialtas na Breataine trúpaí paramíleata go hÉireann, chun an lábhan uachtar a áilt ar Franglam agus mí áward na tíre. Na dúchrónaí ar dús agus an sin na auxiliaries. Hannig an Restoration of Order Act I bhaim mí lúnasa 1950, an tacht fin ar chuileú breis agus scór séranach faoi chuairt an Breatainach. Déirú Deichniúr Díosan, an Deichniúr Dearmadta chun báis.
Crug Court Armor and Deichniúr tuisc go raibh na Sasnig ag caile an cácht agus an smacht na bhíocha ar an tír. Bud an arm court leis an cód bhíleata is dlí féile a bhain le saidirí agus barud eisceaptúil ar fad é dhéanamh. Déanamh é leis an Restoration of Order in Ireland Act 1950. Agus thug sé sin cócht dos na Sasnig in Éireann, dailán le Saoránaigh in Éireann, álas na mar rud é gur haidirí an airm hasna a bhí antú. Agus bin an fá gur úsáideach é le pianbhre a chuirí bhain ar na hóglaigh, tá sé go dubhaspád le sin.
Cé gur tríal chuairt a chuirhar an Deichniúr, ní uair siad bás aidiúra, ach crochúiad cosúil le corpaí chománta. Tar éis na crochtaí, dír gaoltaí na marmh a gorpaní ar ais ó údaráis na Breataine. Ach corú na corpáin I gré frísún. Dúra leis na gaoltaí na fétaí gaolúd an éiritas, faoi míle sé an tacht an fianal spá.
On the morning of the execution, my grandmother stood outside the gates of Lontry and demanded his body and to be released, and the authorities wouldn't consider that.
I believe the family were so shocked at the idea of not being able to obtain his body for burial that I don't think they really knew where to turn to. And as a result, had to virtually give up hope, which was, I find, a terrible punishment in itself.
Ideally, the family would have liked him to have a proper funeral and him to come home, and that was his wishes, that he would come home, but as it turned out, he didn't come home for a very long time.
Nuair a haring rialtas na Breataine mí anar 1952, lean iad sín at lán faoin rialtas nua, taisí déanana an óglach áilt ar ais. Thocraí Mícheál Coileáin gur cheart dí eileachú a dhéanú ar chorpán an óglach a churú leistíte frísún nó barachaí míleata. Faríar bris cogadh na garad amach agus chorú na cinú ar ceall. Tar éis cogadh na garad bhí deilt harad sa tír. Bhí amach chun pullatúla a smacht. Bhásaí rialtas nua an téirstáid 67 fearr le linn cogadh na garad. I 1954, dí eileachú ceathrar I muin seo agus a chorú las muitin bríosún iad. Níor ceadíoch áfach dí eileachú na bhéir a chur údaráis na Breataine chun báis.
We've never really had satisfactory explanations for why the remains have not been removed. Whether it had anything to do with the political climate at the time or not, I don't know, but I see no reason why any delay can be justified, to be honest with you.
Bé seasa bhrialtas an téirstáid ná gur síl corthaí ró ada, agus nach bheith bhí tóirt faoidí eileachú. Léir survé a genú in 1925, dúrú gur cadiú an Deichniúr I gúnraí gan chaideán, I gré leoch chrum. Níor scéal dóchasach é. In 1926, bunaíoch eagraíocht Ionach cuman únaí na leachra gael an NGA agus thóg siad sin láithreach I gás an Deichniúra.
The first memorial to the Forgotten Ten was a memorial erected by the National Graves, 1934. The purpose of the National Graves was to ensure that the memories of men and women who worked extremely hard for Ireland, who risked death, who suffered death, are kept alive for the benefit of the Irish people. We didn't like the idea of 10 people who made the supreme sacrifice for Ireland to lie in prison soil.
Harna bliantaí, Príal Germany éagsúla ar únaí an óglach, an NGA cormádaí an Deichniúra, Seanondarí an IRA, Cárdaí agus Gaeltaí. A feadh blianta fada, héach líon mór scoláirí a choláiste na hallscoile blá clia ar mórtheolach an na húna, comórú bliantúil Kevin Barry. In aineoin sin I lig, chuinní rialta sí leanónacha orthú, bliana ní bliana ag dúil tú taisí déanana an óglach dá Gaeltaí. In 1961, ag searamnas don na Gaeltaí, nacht an túchtarán éimean de Valera, deara nua ar óna an óglach. Enan ní tír a láindíobh leis ar leachtaní éagsúla ar fud na tíre. In 1965, dearí le fachtas eile an NGA, taisí Rory de Gasman a aithhiúchú ó rialtas na Breataine. Oscailiú an díosbaireacht faoi uaí an Deichniúra, ach ba leor tógáil na cruise seo de rialtas na hÉireann is gosúil. Le himimecht aimsire ba léir go raibh ag tip ar a bhaachtas. Dearán na Gaeltaí ar éon ocail faoi dí eileachú, chail go leor acu dóchas.
I found the attitude of successive governments difficult to understand. Things were left sitting quietly, and if you leave things sitting quietly for a long time, people forget.
Each of these 10 men have their own story. Each of them are equal in what they have done, in what they believed in, and are each deserving of the same amount of recognition and honour and respect.
In géad lá saoin 1925, an chroch a bhí an do scolar a leish, 1810 an chéad duine den Deichniúr agus an té a bóige leis. Primus inter pares, Martin clú Kevin Barry fós. Rugú is ráis na tinine má clia 1902, an tríú páiste a seachtar. Búchtalannaí be háthar Tom, a fuair bás gan nach 6 bliain é Kevin, agus thóg Mary Barry na páiste bóige leithí ar eistan dar an dúchais ceatharlach. Tás Kevin a níos ar erim I Dombay, go mór faoi anáil poblachtach Cathy an drifur sinne. Im ná clí ríis den níos a chuig déag is óglach é Kevin le complecht sí an chéad chatlan. Seall is scalannaí I chuinil ar an gúrhóthar thuaí, áte bhúil sé le na bhún chara Frank Flood. Glachan gur teacu páirt in achtarí milite le chéalaí. Bhí an chrochan an de Frank chomaich. Drastal Kevin ar choláiste Belvedere, scolára comasach a dimmer ománaíocht agus rugby. Even behan scolára leish, the UCD.
He was a very light-hearted person. Now there's a letter that we have here. They went on a drinking spree, 5 or 6 of them, to Glendalough. But in the letter he said on his way home from Hackstown to Town Bay here that he fell off 3 or 4 times on the bicycle. And the end of the letter was damn drink anyway.
There's one new letter that I found in which he declares himself having been blotto for a week. That's not bad going.
I gan cúpla bliain óglach crochanta be Kevin. Míon bheitheh 1925, Chain buin óglach, Barry agus flood in a mask, ag sealgrucht arm sa King's Inns im lá lia. Í armáil siad buin mór saidúr agus scuil siad síriad. Maidin an fiche lá bhean fóver níag fiche, bhí Kevin in animas a bheith ag attógáil scúdú leis. Bádó sin dó. Ag lacopáirte bhí sé, I líochán bhuiin saidúrí ag bácús monks, idir sráid na haglaise agus sráid an rí húi.
There were 8 soldiers altogether, but one of them realised that he wasn't being covered by anybody, and he fired a shot in the air, and that started the whole thing first. Kevin's gun jammed several times, but he was able to get a shot in with the 4th round, and he hit somebody. Then his gun jammed again, and he dived in under the lorry. But some woman saw him, and she thought the lorry was going to drive over him, so she called as a man under the lorry.
Gá agus tógu go dtí an North Dublin Union áte cheistíú Kevin go trom. I ráitis faoi bhóid ribachreachta, dúirt sé gur tugadh droch ide dó, agus gur cuireadh faoi bhagairt a bhá sé sa Union. Muna sceithigh sé animacha a chumrádaithe. An bhícheú láide bhí ar a fóver, tógu Barry go dtí an chóirtearm, an chéad cheandá lehéid ag Barrick Marlborough. Cuireadh dúnmharú an Private Whitehead in a le. Saidúr na poblachta, ní raithin Barry an chóirt, agus haring a attorney Sean O'Huey siar an chás.
Kevin was sitting very casually in the chair with his legs out, and he got an evening paper from the evening before, and he started to read it. And he was asked various questions which arose from the statements of the various witnesses. And he said, "I told you, I do not recognise the court."
Bhí is go maithaige céir a bhí an ná dó. Gágé ar an láthair le gona in a lámh, agus fiú muidir scuil sé an ochar é féin. Bhí sé ciontach agus an pinál sa gghearfaí ar ná Peter an bháis rud a dénach.
Rinú iirechtaí ag an nebelis airde halas a bus, fuisih óhás áilt de Barry tuis go óige. Níor ghéal an General Macready. Fleanál mí hala chuileán tarthail ach níor éile leis. Scríomh Kevin a litir dhearannach dá chara Kathleen.
Dear Kathleen, I have just received your letter and thank you for it from my heart. I believe the usual thing done in my case is to make a speech from the dock or something, but I couldn't be serious long enough to do it. Besides, anyone who ever knew me would never believe I wrote it. Now I'll shut up. I wish you every success in love and business. Give my adieu to Des and your mother, and say a little prayer when I cash in. Your pal, Kevin. Yes, Kay. As you remark, we have seen some good times, but not as...
And my father, Michael. And it was a very touching scene, in that they said their farewells and he stood to attention and saluted them as they left. So that was the memory they had of him when they were going out. He seemed perfectly calm and showed no fear of dying. He was proud to die for his country.
Why they chose the 1st of November for the hanging, I don't know. People came up to Mountjoy, they were free from work because it was the All Saints' Day, and there were something like 5,000 outside the prison praying for him. Kevin believed firmly that the country should be independent of Britain, and eventually he proved it by giving his life for that belief. Colin spent the night weeping and vowing that there would be no more lonely scaffolds, that Kevin's would be the last.
Níor cholínú galúint I chuileán. Níor bé croch weignach Kevin Barry an bású Jerry. Tá stiad a cúig bhí trig Morgan agus Thomas Whelan I marithe ónach na falla. An téann lá fiche saoil níag fiche an íar maidin warí gunadóirí mí hála chuileán dar déag de rún seirbhís na Breataine ag láthair éagsúla fug na chaiteach. Hid Birch Auxiliary san actriad céanlaí. Buile marfach de gréasán fasneise na Breataine. An tróna sin, fris bhuiin dúchrónach isteach a chluife idir Gláithlia agus Tibredáirn I bácha chrócaí. Scuil siad gunnaí, fág ó 4 marú.